Okay, welcome to Comically Exposed, episode 5. I'm your host, Heather, and my co-host is...
Gabbie. Nice work, Heather.
Me doing an introduction is a fascinating experience because I'm feeling warm all of a sudden.
Uh-huh.
But that's okay. So let's start out the podcast. So Gabbie.
Yes.
What have you been working on?
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for asking. I can't believe we've waited all this time until we finally got to me. Well, for the viewers at home who can't see anything because there's no viewing, I have a Post-it in front of me because I put down my things on a Post-it because I keep forgetting. Here we go. So, well, last time we talked about me applying to this podcast, late night show podcast, and they got back to me very quickly and they said, no, thank you.
Aw.
They said that we've had a lot of, like an overwhelming amount of people apply. And so, you know, at this time, I don't remember. But I was kind of like, I had a lot of thoughts, right? One, good, because I kind of didn't think it was a good podcast. And two, how dare they? Because it wasn't a good podcast and they should be so lucky as to have me on their staff. And then 3 was the like, oh, those are 2 conflicting thoughts. Cool. So that's what happened with that podcast. The one thing that I did manage to do, I applied to Mortified.
Oh, yay. Yay.
Mm-hmm. And I fully used your advice, which was just do it. Although I think you put it much more nicely than that.
I think I said baby steps.
Yes, you definitely did say baby steps. You also encouraged me to actually find the written stand-up in the house and then apply. And it turned out that my OCD had come up with a bunch of different steps that I needed to accomplish on the application that the application did not say to do. For instance, I took photos of this stand-up that I wrote in a spiral notebook back when I was 16. I spent time editing said photos and upping the contrast and making it sharper so it was easier to read. Then I typed up everything that was on the stupid photos anyway, so that I could not only submit the photos, I'd also have a PDF, and, you know, this would all be great. The application asked for a few excerpts.
And you provided all of it.
There was no place to upload any of the rest of it.
Ah.
Yes. So I had come up with the idea that they needed to see original documents and then a typed version. Yeah. And if you're asking yourself, did it also take you time, Gabbie, to take the photos from your phone, get them onto the computer, then realize you needed to edit said photos, go back to your phone, edit on the phone, and then, yes, it did. It took like an hour out of my life of just spinning my wheels, which I think is so typical OCD. It's just a fucking time waster. But very cool. I applied. I didn't put in any of the emails. I didn't tell them about any of the emails from my freshman year of college. So they're going to get back to me and say either like, this is bullshit, or, hey, buddy, we need more stuff. And that is out of my control. But my OCD was trying to control it.
Also, there was a little bit of judgment I heard there.
No. Yeah. Where did you hear the judgment?
All throughout, it was interweaved into the whole thing. But I'm glad you did it.
Thank you.
Aside from that, I'm not going to judge your judge. I mean, I could.
I believe you. But then I would have to judge your judge of my judge. And then all day
and then it's going to be a whole thing.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
And then it's judge. A couple of things for the listener. One, we're recording at a totally different time. We're recording at night. And for some reason, that means that you and I are both way more awake than we normally are. And the second thing is, I'd like to get into the stuff that I didn't do. But I'd also like to say, I think this podcast this episode has a theme, and that theme is self-compassion.
Yes, I totally agree, because that's the one element that, at first when you hear about self-compassion, you think, oh, that's kind of hokey. That does nothing. But in reality, especially with OCD, and I'm sure with many other disorders, you just have to have a bit of self-compassion for yourself to help you get through, a loop or a cycle of OCD. Because when you're in the thick of it, which I recently was, is that self-compassion, being reminded of doing that practice is difficult when you're in the thick of it.
Yeah.
When you're looping and you're being judgmental and after your intrusive thought, and then you catch yourself doing like a compulsion and then another compulsion and then another compulsion, because you're like ping-ponging all over the place, and it is very late at night. I was actually reminded very early this morning when I watched Ted Lasso for the millionth time in the 3rd season with Sam and his father. And his father spoke to him with such compassion that it made me realize, I'm like, how do I teach myself how to be more compassionate to myself?
Oh, yeah.
And say fuck it to the things that, I can't control, and pursue the things that I want to do, because that's the thing that OCD does, is it robs you from the things that you want to do.
Yeah.
Because you just have all those doubts in your mind, that go with those intrusive thoughts, and it just builds and builds and builds. And that's, I don't want to use so many metaphors, but that's becomes the prison,
yeah,
that we end up living in. Self-imposed.
Well, yeah, self-imposed, but
from a disorder.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was like,
Yeah.
It sounds like we're trying to say that we have control over the OCD, which if that was the case, then we wouldn't have OCD.
Because we hear it too, right? It's like, you just have to do that, do that one thing, it's like, just do it. And it's like,
yeah. Exactly.
And it's really hard to explain,
Unless you're talking to a fellow OCD person who just gets it.
I know. And then you feel acceptance.
Exactly. But yeah, it's like, you do a compulsion so that you can get rid of the anxiety, at least for a second, so you can have a little bit of breathing room. But then, at least for me, I'll do a compulsion and then I'll immediately have all this self-judgment and beating myself up for giving into a compulsion. And then it's just like, ooh, this is a self-perpetuating joyride. Yeah. It's a real bummer.
It's fun.
Once again, we are still selling OCD on our website. It's discounted if you call today. Mm-hmm. Instead of $19.99, it's $19.93. I don't know. Anyway, we'll cut that. Okay. Yeah. So self-compulsions. Oh boy. Self-compassion is it's so tough because it also requires, at least for me, it requires acknowledging what is currently happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that feels like losing, right?
Yeah, it can.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but how do you move yourself forward? I mean, that's the thing, because there's always going to be good and bad. But the reality is, at least the way that my therapist talks about it is like, you don't really think of it as good or bad. It's just stuff.
Exactly. It's just stuff. It's just accepting what is.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know, because OCD has told me, no, you don't have to accept what is. You can control what other people are doing, how other people are feeling. You can take care of everybody, It's going to be okay as long as you're the one in control. And then admitting that that's not what's happening. And then being like, okay, Gabbie, that's okay that you felt that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
it's
living with the uncertainty.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of bringing tears to my eyes. So let's move on from it. The thing that I didn't do this week was I wanted to invite more people to do my Batshit Roommate podcast. And so I was going to create a graphic and then I was going to post it on social media that's just like, do you have a crazy roommate story? Like, contact this gal, which is great. But there's been some stuff in the world recently, and we do not have to get into it, but it has made social media a very painful place, I think, for everybody all around. It just, it feels like everybody's having these conversations on social media about world events that aren't really moving anything forward.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just causing divides.
Yeah. And yet I still feel like I'm not doing anything because I haven't posted on social media. So self-compassion.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, it's hard to, when you're dealing with your own stuff too, on top of that, and then realizing that there's a whole world outside of you, then you feel like you're being selfish.
Yes.
That you're taking care of yourself.
Yes.
And that's honestly not the truth, and it's like, and that's again where self-compassion comes into play, right? Because what somebody chooses to do versus what you choose to do is, are both right. Mm-hmm. I mean, other than, the obvious things.
Yes.
Like murder.
Yeah.
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 So.
Yeah. But, nope, I was going to make a joke. Can't do it. Okay.
But, so you said you wanted to create a graphic. So the graphic is to announce.
Oh, okay. I see. You're asking me to fill in the blanks.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
The graphic is to say, like, hi, do you have crazy roommate story? And I kind of want to figure out a better word than crazy. I mean, speaking as two people with some mentals, that I don't know if that word is still appropriate anymore. But yeah, do you have a batshit roommate story? And do you want to come on my podcast and talk to me about it?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah. So it just felt.
So it's just like the step for your podcast. I mean, that is really good.
The thing that has held me back is I've been using Canva, and everything that I want to use on it is behind a paywall. So then I was like, no problem. I'll look into just, paying for membership for a little while. And then other tabs got open on the computer and...
And then you were in a research spiral from there.
Actually, no, I was saved by it was more like the other acronym that rules my life, ADHD. It was like, oh, but I should check on my bank account. Oh, and am I paying that bill? Oh, and did I follow up with that person about tremendous progress and, productivity? That was the word I was searching for.
Yeah, I mean, how you define productivity.
Again, yes.
Yeah, is also a judgment.
Damn it. I was doing so good.
No, but so creating a graphic, you're finding limitations in what you can do. Yeah, I mean, I can see how hard that can be when it's not the way you want it to look. That makes it difficult.
Yeah. And yes, exactly. I have so many thoughts about it. I've already decided on the logo, but then I can't figure out how to do the logo. It's just getting into weeds.
We could cut this part out, but I can help with that too.
That was exactly where I was headed. I'm so glad I didn't have to ask.
You could just draw me up something that you're thinking about, and I can help you out what you're looking for. So,
cool.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that off pod.
Yeah.
Because we're friends
we could just talk about
life.
Exactly. We don't just talk to each other. Well, we do just talk to each other.
That's true. We've only met via the screens so far.
Yes, we're both two-dimensional.
Mm-hmm. I know if I ever see you in 3D, I'll probably start screaming and then never stop.
You're like, where's your mic?
That's right. What do you mean you have a body? You're not just a disembodied head? What? Why? Yeah, so I think those are all of my things.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So what about you, friend Heather?
I did not write a Post-it note list, and it has been, I mean, if I was to remember everything I did. Let's see. I reached out to people in the humor writing world to review the humor piece that I wrote.
Yes.
And I got notes and feedback back. And tomorrow I was planning on doing a rewrite. So moving on from that. From there, I ended up deciding to take a class with a teacher that I've taken classes from, Luke Byrne. He's excellent and in humor writing. And so I'm taking a class with him right now and writing more humor pieces and seeing how it goes. And I also joined a humor writing group.
Dang, dude.
Not that I'm overcommitting. I feel like all of a sudden I'm like, am I overcommitting? But in reality, it happened all very naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like the right direction. And so, wanting to do more work and writing consistently is something that I really want to do. And then, humor writing is a different style of writing.
Mm-hmm.
It's all joke. It is, one big joke, and then you heighten the joke. And something I've actually gotten from my notes is my jokes sound like stories. And I'm like, yes, I love writing stories, but I think it's also good to write something different
Mm-hmm.
to start to see things, which I think for me, I think this is a good direction. The other thing was, I opened my Doubt It script.
All right.
And realized I had written half of Act 2.
Oh my gosh,
but
dude.
totally forgot.
Oh my gosh, dude. Heather.
So I haven't fully mapped out, but I am starting to outline the end. And so the intent is this next round, I plan on ending Act 2 and then maybe starting on Act 3 and then hopefully finishing it. But I already know the rewrite, but I am trying to refrain from the rewrite because I can rewrite an intro so well. I can make the best cold open that anyone's ever read, but then the rest of it, nothing. So I have to finish it in order to do the rewrite. And it's not a rule that I'm self-imposing. Maybe it is a rule. I don't know. It feels like the right thing to do as the next step.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was really excited about that. But I've been slightly distracted because I've been catching us up on our podcast. I feel like I talk about the podcast in the podcast, within the podcast, on the podcast. Anyway. No, but I wanted to catch us up so we're a little bit closer in time sequence, so it's not like we're talking about the writer's strike again.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, not like anybody's judging us, or listening to us in sequence or whatever, but, like I'm making this way bigger than it needs to be, but that's where I am.
Well, that is all you, because I've never done anything like that. Never once.
So since I already set my goals, I just condensed my goals with what I said I worked on. You know what? Who cares?
Great. I mean, way to be super efficient. That's fantastic. I was just going to congratulate you on, one, doing all the humor piece writing, because I think one of the reasons that we started this podcast is to try a bunch of different types of comedy stuff. Mm-hmm. And so that's awesome. And then also hilarious that you had already written most of Act 2 and had forgotten about it.
Well, you know how Act 2s go. It's like there's a lull. In time, because it's like the beginning and end. There's a lot of action happening. For me, like Act 2 seems like it kind of like moves at a slow, like snail's pace. Like let's just get to Act 3. You know, if it could be just Act 1 and 3, bam, that's perfect.
Maybe that's your rewrite. You just like, I know
all beginnings and ends.
Yes, exactly.
That's it. No middles.
Right. None. Maybe one fart joke, but that's it.
Yeah, that's the only middle.
That's it. That's right. That's good. Those are the best sandwiches. Just bread.
Yeah. With a fart?
No, okay, yeah. Ooh, mixing
a fart sandwich.
Fart sandwich. That's our next podcast. Fart sandwich. We'll figure out the details later, but I think we can sell 1 million copies.
But Gabbie's going to come up with the graphic.
Yeah, that's right.
It'll be fantastic.
Okay, great. Excellent segue. So my goals for this coming is the graphic and to actually post it someplace and ask people to join my podcast. And here's another thing. No. Never mind.
You didn't want to do the table read? Is that what you're saying? Is that the one you're trying to ignore?
That's the one I'm trying to ignore. I mean, that's the other thing is, I know that we talked to our actor friend Susan, so, she had great suggestions, but it requires me like contacting people individually and asking them to do this thing. And the thought of asking anybody, well, I talked about this on the last episode. Let's just.
Yeah.
So.
No. It is hard because I've asked people, I mean, not a filmed, recorded table read of my work or other people's work, but I've actually set up table reads, with some people to give feedback, so they're just reading, providing voices, but then also providing feedback. But that's not what you're looking for. You're looking for
what I heard from what you just said is that you were willing to help me with the graphic as well as willing to help me set up this table read. I try, but
I'm just saying, like,
you better.
You could do a casting call, like you could throw a net out if you wanted to, or if you know specific people. Yeah, I mean that's the thing is, I would reach out to specific people.
Mm-hmm. Well, Susan suggested like come up with a date when I want to do it, and then ask specific people if they can even make that date. And then if they can make that date, then I can say, hey, how do you feel about playing Nandor or whatever? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can come up with a date. You have the script written.
Oh, yeah. I forgot that that's like the hard part.
Well, I mean, there's lots of hard parts because what's really happening is having the work be exposed.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to do the work. Yeah. But it's another thing to have the work exposed. So,
but it's so cozy in this vacuum.
Well, maybe the table read is a two-parter. Maybe it's a like this is us working out the kinks, and then this is us doing the formal recording. And so,
what do you mean by us working out the kinks?
Well, when the actors are doing their parts, they're going to read it cold.
Yes.
Or warmish. Like you may give them the script and then say, this is the read. But you kind of want to play with their voices because if you're really directing them, you want to make sure that they're sounding, like the part.
Okay. I like this. This is good. I'm taking notes. So
everybody take these notes.
Yes, exactly.
I'm telling you how to do this because I have done it before. Not really.
Okay. So, graphic and baby steps with table read. Okay. That's me.
Yeah.
That's
done, and then, well,
what?
I mean, but if, so the next step I was going to say was if you reached out to people and you haven't heard back or people just don't have time, then I would just blast it on social media and say, hey, casting call.
Ooh.
See what else? What do I need to do?
Yeah.
So I'm going to restate it because I don't know if I did it all, but I was going to write my second draft of my humor piece after my notes from the very generous people. I'm also writing a piece for my class, but that's just for my class. And then I was going to finish my act 2 and start my act 3.
Nice, dude.
But refrain from editing because I can go into that so long.
Yep.
Waste so much time.
But you get to waste time just later on.
Yeah. Well, then when it's re-edited, at least I have a whole piece to work with.
Yes.
Rather than
getting really bogged down in little teeny tiny details and like working and working and working and working.
And where my, cold open sounds really good. And then the rest of it doesn't sound like it's the same story.
Yeah. Well, I think that'll be an interesting take. I don't think many people have tried that, where like the first act is coherent, the second act is just abstract nonsense, and the third act, picks up where the first one left off.
Yeah, because I like the ending.
Exactly.
I just don't want to get to the ending. I just want to be in the ending.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear it at home, but Bunny is whining off screen here. And so I really hope that's not on the podcast. Bye-bye. Okay, so you've summed up what you're going to do next week. I've summed up what I'm going to do this next week or two. And then that's the end of the podcast.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yes.
And with 6.
Oh,
episode
yeah.
6.
Episode 6. So exciting.
We
All right.
made it.
We did it. High fives
Yay.
all around. This is great. Yay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Welcome to the end of the show. This is Gabbie Blachman.
And this is Heather Nye.
Thank you for listening to Comically Exposed. We are just a little show with 2 creators who edit and produce each episode. We appreciate all your support.
If you like what you heard, please follow us on Instagram at comicallyexp.podcast. That's comicallyexp.podcast.
Or subscribe to us on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. New episodes drop every other Wednesday.
Also, special thanks to Track Club and Golden Finch for providing the music.
Thanks for listening, and hey, everybody, today is a great day to expose yourself. Okay, until next time, ta-da for ta-da!
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.